Hello, welcome back to Just a Verse. My name is Bridget, and my goal on this channel is to make you get a deeper understanding of a Bible verse by supporting the Bible verse with instances, stories, and experiences, and also relating the Bible verse to our daily lives. So, we're not going to waste time. We're going to jump right into the verse of the day. The verse we're going to be working on is a common verse, which is Exodus 14, verses 14. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Like always, before we dive into that verse, let me just give you a brief summary of how that verse came into context. The story was about God freeing the Israelites from Pharaoh. So during this time, the Israelites was getting ready to go to the promised land. So all of a sudden, they realized that Pharaoh's army was coming back for them. So when they started to get anxious, that was when they started complaining. And then Moses told them, "Be still, the Lord will fight for you." So eventually, what happened was God really did fight for them. As we all know, he parted the Red Sea, Pharaoh army, and all of them fell into the water while the Israelites walked through the dry land. So yeah, that's how God fought for them beautifully, like what Moses told them. We're going to be talking about the importance of being still during tests and trials. So what importance is, if you're not still, you could end up falling into the enemy's trap by acting or doing something that God dislikes, which could delay your breakthrough. An instance. So let's say somebody has fabricated a story, spreading rumors that a person has been stealing, right? So now this person has found out that, wow, like, how can somebody make up such a false accusation? So instead of this person being still, like, wow, pray to God, God will fight for me, the person will do the contrary. The person decides not to be still and decide to rather fight this person back. So he realizes that, I have a conversation about this person, so I'm going to post this conversation publicly to embarrass this man. Because if he has embarrassed me to the point that people are thinking that I'm a thief, then I'm going to embarrass him as well. So the person just posts the conversation, and now he embarrasses the person who falsely accused him. So now this person has taken revenge. So we could clearly see that he has fell into the enemy's trap. The devil could go to God like, "Hey, are you really going to vindicate this person? He just took a revenge." In that case, God could allow the devil to do whatever that he wants to this person because he did fall into the enemy's trap. So now the enemy will probably plan that I am going to cause people to keep believing that this person is a thief. But let's just say, right, if this person was still, maybe there was a witness while the person was planning the false accusation on this person, right? The witness was hiding somewhere, and then he saw everything that was going on. Like, okay, so he's planning a false story that this person is a thief. God could work through that person to vindicate you, right? But now that this person went ahead of God and then took a revenge, the witness will probably sit back and say, "You know what? He has taken revenge, so there's no need for me to defend him." So that way, people are still going to believe that this person is a thief. Or people will start believing like, this person seems like he has a bad character. So there's a capability that he really is a thief. So, yeah, that's why it's very important for us to stay still during tests and trials. The next one is, if you're not still, the devil can use your own words to delay your breakthrough. Let's say God tells P that P is going to be a king. So people heard this prophecy, right? And now the prophecy has not come through yet. So now people are having all different opinions about this situation. Some people are saying that, oh, P has done some mistakes. That's why he's no longer getting his breakthrough. Some people are saying maybe the prophecy is wrong. Some people are saying that he really has that faith to think that he is actually going to be a king. P is hearing all sort of stuff. So now P is really frustrated, and P does know the reason why he's not a king yet, because God has told him. But people don't know why he's not a king yet. So because P is so frustrated, P decides not to be still and go ahead of God and just tell the people, like, you know what, I'm tired of you guys. The reason why I'm not a king, it's because, and he gives out the secret. God wants me to stay with this person first. And then after that, that's when I'm going to get my breakthrough. So that's the reason. So it's not like God has forgotten me. God just wants me to stay with somebody. So after I stay with that person, I'm going to get my breakthrough. And then now the person who P was arguing with would now be like, oh, so that means if he stays with that person, that's when he will get his breakthrough. And then the person will be like, he's going to try all that he can for P to not stay with that person. And there are some people who, right, if they get into argument, they want to prove that they were right. There are some people like that. So for them to say something like, didn't I tell you? Somebody could try to work against his own words, right? Trying so hard, like, okay, I'm not going to let this person live with this person, just to prove himself right. So that's why it's very important to stay still when there is test and trial. If you open your mouth too much, you end up sinning and fall into the enemy's traps. All right, so we're going to use the same instance with P being the king, right? So in this instance, right, P didn't give out any secret information, right? But P was just so furious to the point where he just ended up saying something really rude to the person who was challenging him, right? So let's say he's like, oh, you did some mistakes. That's why you're not a king yet, and all of that, right? And then this person would say something like, who are you talking to like that? Like, you have no sense. Get out of here. And then probably add more rude words or whatever. And then the enemy will go right back to God. You see, P doesn't have patience. Are you really going to fight for P? Look at what P just did. And then God could allow the enemy, because God will say, yeah, P needs to work on his patience. So while the enemy wants to delay his breakthrough, God will use that to teach P patience. And guess what? The breakthrough is delaying. Another importance is, if you're still, your reward is greater, and God fights for you beautifully. And so even the common story that we know from the Bible with Haman and Mordecai, right? When Haman lied on Mordecai and told the king that the Jews had their own laws and they weren't obeying nobody laws, and formed that lie. So the king should allow them to kill all Jews. And, what Mordecai did was he cried. His daughter, Esther, heard it. They fasted, and guess what happened? That night when Esther was going to reveal the real truth to the king, right? He went to go grab the Chronicles book, opened it, and realized that, Mordecai helped me, because one time, two of the king's people who were watching the king's door, right? They were planning to kill the king, and Mordecai was the one who reported that case. And then the king put a robe on him, celebrated him. The king ended up finding out the truth. Mordecai was no longer going to be killed, but rather Haman was killed. Mordecai was invited to the king's place, and Esther made him take care of Haman's room. And then the king gave his signet ring that he previously gave to Haman. If you're still, right, through any circumstance, God rewards you so beautifully. Like, there's so many stories of people being still, right? Whenever there's a situation, just like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to pray to God. And then the way that God rewards them in front of people, it's mind blowing, because that's just how God fights. God fights beautifully when you're still. So I know that it's not always easy. Sometimes the words that people would say, you would want to fight so bad, right? But we have to remember that when you remain still, God fights for you beautifully, because if you go ahead of God, you might fall into the enemy's trap. And I'm not saying that nobody should stand up for themselves, like, no, I didn't do this, or no, this is not the case, or anything. Like, just standing up for yourself. Standing up for yourself is good. But we just have to know when to be still. You don't have to explain yourself too much. What would really help us to always remember to stay still is to remember, when God fights for you, He fights beautifully. If we have that in mind, whenever there is an accusation, whenever there is a trial, we would always remember that, if God is the best fighter, let me just be still and pray to God, because if I go ahead of God, I might mess this up. So let me just sit down, and all I have to do is just keep praying. If I pray, God will vindicate me. God will fight for me beautifully. If you have realized that there have been tests and trials and maybe you weren't still, know that we're all not perfect. But what we have to do is to go in front of God and just ask Him for forgiveness. During these times that I wasn't still, God, forgive me and vindicate me. And I know that the merciful God, the forgiving Father, will forgive you and will fight for you and vindicate you. So I have just provided the importance of remaining still during tests and trials. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that this video blessed you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and if God permits, see you when I upload my next video. Bye-bye.